When you came up as a 22-year-old, did you realize what you were in for when you joined the Braves? I mean, because it was basically Hank Aaron's team back then.
Well, it was great. Growing up, my idol was Eddie Matthews, and when I got to the Braves, I originally signed with the Kansas City A's, and I played with Raleigh Stingers and Vida Blue and Gene Tennis, all those guys that eventually won 3 world championships. And I was behind Sal Bando there, so I was very fortunate to be Rule 5 to the Braves. And then I go to the Braves. They have to keep me in the major leagues, send me back. And Eddie Matthews had just retired from the world champion 1968 Detroit Tigers. And my idol, left-hand hitting third baseman from California, and the guy's on the Sports Illustrated cover, and the person that I wanted to meet most in the world was now my hitting coach. And he took me under his wing, and I was basically his son for all that time I was there. So the transition into going to the major leagues was having somebody on my side that was telling me what to do and how to do it, and was always there for me. So, and then I got to enjoy, playing with Hank, the best player of all time as far as I'm concerned, and one of the best, and no question. And then we also had Orlando Cepeda and Phil Niekro, and Hoyt Wilhelm was his last year, was there. So I had 4 Hall of Famers. Of course, we didn't know that at the time, but man, you go into a team and you're 22 years old and you don't even know what's happening, and all of a sudden you're surrounded by all these guys you idolized and wanted to get their baseball card signed too. So it was, I couldn't have been any better for me. It was incredible that I got put in that situation.
When Ted Williams managed the Senators, they talked about that he couldn't relate to the players because he thought they should all be like him. How was Eddie Matthews like? Because a lot of times great players have trouble transitioning to be great coaches.
Well, I think that people don't understand that the great players expect more because they expected more of themselves. One of the reasons why they're great players it was because they expect more, and they're used to getting the most out of people. And maybe it's a shortcut that some people don't understand that you have to make. I mean, the difference between the great players and the other, not everybody's a great player that's in the major leagues, but those guys that we talk about like that, they've already gone through all this stuff, and they basically, every one of them that I've ever been around is always open and wanting to give you shortcuts and tell you, instead of you taking 5 years to experience something, they're right there for you and tell you exactly how to do it. And sometimes it's strange, sometimes it's tough, and I think it's a lot of times it's tough love. I played for Frank Robinson also with the Giants, and he expected you to be better than you thought you were, and I think that's what most great players feel like, that hey, we're going to try to get the most out of you, and sometimes it's everybody needs to be taught different ways, I guess, but sometimes it doesn't work for some people, or maybe, just one guy that doesn't get it and doesn't agree with it gives somebody a reputation. Are you kidding me? The best hitter of all time, Ted Williams, would I love to be around him and watch him every day, or have him be my mentor? My gosh, that's something I just can't imagine not finding a way to get along with them and to do what they're talking about. And sure, they're tough on people, but they expect the most, and that's how you win. You got to be better than other people.
How did Eddie Matthews help you as a hitter?
Well, I was such in awe of him anyway, but he had just finished playing, so that was a great thing. He had just, he was, been a big star, obviously, and all that kind of stuff, and then the last year was on the 68 Tigers, and pinch hit and didn't play all the time and everything. But he was a young, as I've experienced now, he was still a young man that wasn't allowed to play anymore. They ask about when you retire and stuff, and Eddie was one of those guys. He had to tear the uniform off him, so he wanted to pass along everything he was doing. Just because he wasn't playing, he was still involved in everything in the game. So he grabbed me right away. And Clete Boyer was our third baseman there with the Braves, great player. And Bob Esfamani was also there. So I was, I wasn't going to play much, which is okay, but to have somebody just grab a hold of me and kind of go, I think it was timing was a big part of it, is that I was his first kind of coaching experience, and here he's a left-handed hitter, and he took me down the batting cage. First of all, he took me out on the field and hit me ground balls and over and over and over again, and told me that, you'll learn how to be accurate, because most young kids aren't. We just throw and get in front of the ball, knock it down, feel good about it, and you'll learn how to do that. And it was always a positive influence on it. But he took me in the batting cages every day, too, through batting practice to me, and just taught me a little bit more about aiming point, about where to expect the ball, to make the strike zone a little bit smaller, the hitting zone a lot smaller, that I had to be selfish, that I could hit anything pretty much. We can all do that, but we don't want to do that. We want to get good pitches to hit so we can hit them hard. And the realization that, if you don't, you got 7 world-class people out there catching it. That's why hitting it so hard. You got 7 guys, world-class, are going to catch it. And it's hard enough to hit it good. So his philosophy to me was, okay, we're going to teach you how to hit it so hard they're not going to catch it, or are you going to hit it over their heads all the time? And just subtle little stuff that every day pushing and pushing. Okay, come on, you can get better. You can do this, you can do that. You can do this, you can do that. So after a while, you just look forward to it every single day, going to the ballpark and learning something new from somebody that you realize how, one of the best, best third baseman all the time. And this guy's your older brother, your uncle, your dad, the guy that's there for you every single day when you're going to try to get through and to learn how to get better. So I'm just flabbergasted that I got a chance to do that. And I think there's no question he was the main reason why I got to be a much better ball player than when I was first started out.
So you're a Rule 5 player. You got to stay in the majors. It took you a couple of years before you became an everyday player. When did you realize that you could play every day in the major leagues?
I was always confident. I think there's a fine line between cocky and confidence, but I never was going to be run out there and go, okay, watch me and I'm going to do this. But it was like, okay, I always wanted to have this goal. There was always somebody better. And every day you're going, okay, I want to be as good as him. How do I get as good as him? And having Eddie and all the other people that are helping me. But at the same time, it's like you get to the point of going, okay, I can be better. Maybe I can be better. I've been blessed with enough talent or whatever. And if I follow along and watch everybody, and to have Eddie and Hank Aaron to sit there and listen to all the time, they were very open. They wanted you. They want to win. So they want the players, their teammates and stuff, to be better. So they're going to pass along all the stuff, not so much the mechanical stuff, but the mental stuff and how you get prepared and how you intimidate other people and how you present yourself and all those little things that aren't so. At first, you, as a young, inexperienced player, you don't get that, and then you see why they're so good, and you start following in that path. And pretty soon, people give you respect that you're like, oh, okay, shoot. Can you imagine having going facing Bob Gibson and Tom Seaver and Steve Crofton, all these guys, and going, well, yeah, what are you going to do? Quit? Or are you going to try to, I got to get a hit off them once in a while. And once you get to the point of feeling like, okay, I'm capable of doing that, maybe that'll happen. And when it does, that's a big boost for you. It's a big confidence thing. So that got me to the point of going, okay, I had two things, because I can't play in the major leagues, or let's see if I can play as good as the other third baseman that day. Let's see if I can play as good as Mike Schmidt. Let's see if I can play as good as Eddie expected me to. And it was good because I had Clete Boyer for a couple of years. Was a regular third baseman. There wasn't so much pressure on putting me in there and going, okay, until I was ready. And I went down to AAA and hit 360. And I think when I came back up, they called me up in the middle of the year. That was a time when I went, okay, I'm still facing good pitching. Let's get up here. Let's see what this is like. And And I always have the positives from everybody. Okay, yeah, you're the guy, you're the man. And, you know, when I hit my first home run off Bob Gibson, I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, the family and everybody else going, you realize you hit your home run off Bob, and what, you know, and then everybody asks, well, what did he do after that? Well, you know, it's like, well, he was going to intimidate me and everything. Well, I didn't face it until the whole next year, and he didn't do anything. He forgot about it. And what, you know, that was all a perception that people thought was happening all the time, and when in reality, maybe it wasn't as bad. So pretty soon it was like, you know, this is your job. This is the best job in the world. Are you kidding me? This is what you grew up to be able to hope to do, and you get to do it every day, and you got all the support. So, you know, there's no ceiling. It's like, but the great thing about baseball is that no one's perfect, and no one's the best, and no one knows everything about it. So you always have that, even now, after not playing for all these years and being coach and all that stuff, I still have that. I can always learn something. I can always be better. So that combination made it, I guess, when I came back up after going to AAA, and not being real happy about that, but it was a good thing for me. Go back down there, prove to yourself you can play every day. And I hadn't really done that before anyway, because sitting on the bench in the major leagues, you don't play, and you need to play every day. You learn how to do that and how to handle yourself and how to handle injuries and all that kind of stuff. And coming back up from AAA, being successful, everybody expected me to be successful, and so I wasn't gonna be the guy to tell them no. You know, whatever Eddie said I was going to do, whatever Hank said I was going to do.
When you hit the 40 home runs in the season, you, Davey Johnson, Hank Aaron, it was something that no one had done for a long time, and then since then people have done it, but that's a steroid era. Do you think it'll happen again, or is it just something that's once in a lifetime?
Well, you know, if you look back, I mean, at the time you're doing it, it wasn't so much as easier for Davey and myself. And, you know, we also have Dusty Baker there, who ended up, I think, 29 or 30 home runs that year, too. And Davey had never done it, and he had the same kind of situation, although he was an older player and been a world champion with the Orioles and everything. When he came over, Eddie got a hold of him and said, hey, here's what you're capable of doing. I want you to try it a little bit more. And once you get that thirst for it and you have somebody supporting you, no one's telling you, well, you strike out too much. You're swinging a bad pitch. No, it's just the opposite, because you're not striking out and you're not swinging a bad pitches, and you're getting better at what you're doing. And all of a sudden, you know, I thought, you know, if you play 24 weeks in baseball, you know, 6 months, 4 weeks a month, so you got 24 weeks. If you hit one home run a week, you're a pretty good power hitter. I mean, that's 24 home runs, and that's kind of considered. So basically, that year we all hit 2 a week. And when you're on a team that has such a great lineup like that, it's kind of relentless. You go into the game knowing, well, 1 or 2 guys are going to be hot. So you're never going into a game where, you know, you got only 1 or 2 guys on the team that are basically that you can know that are going to be there all the time. This was 4, 5, 6, 7 guys. And I think it was the atmosphere permeated because of Hank and because of Eddie, and that, you know, if you come over and play on the Braves, this is what's expected of you. You know, you can be better. And yeah, I mean, the odds of it happening again are almost impossible. But at the time, it was great because Davey and I had no pressure on us. This was some new experience for us. Hank was going through the catching Babe Ruth until he got to 700 home runs, which is in 1973 when the three of us hit 40. You know, all of a sudden the world stopped and everybody noticed and went, it's not going to be Willie Mays. It's not going to be somebody else. It's going to be Hank Aaron that can break this record. So we just kind of went along with the ride. And he was always a great teammate, was always sharing things. He took us into the press conference when he hit 713, which was actually his 40th home run, and brought us in there with him and told everybody how magical it was and to be part of things and all that kind of stuff. So we always had that support from him, and you know, it's such a great team and such a great teacher. that, whatever Hank wanted, we were going to try to do. And everything's confidence. Once you learn how to do that, now all of a sudden it's like, well, you know what? Wow, I'm hitting balls out of the park now that maybe I might got base hits on or hit line drives. Learning how to do this, it's happening a little more often. So you kind of feed off of that. And because there was a competition between us, there was only 4 guys who hit 40 home runs that year. And after that, there wasn't anybody at 40 home runs for like 3 years. So that was a big mark back then. I guess it's come back to that stature now. But, for a while it was like a lot of guys hit it. But at the time, that was a real big deal. So, you had a lot of people asking you about it, so you were focused. Again, we're trying to win ball games. We're trying to win a pennant. Who are we playing against? The Big Red Machine and the Dodgers, the 2 best teams in baseball probably at the time in our division. And you're still trying to win games. So every time somebody did good, we kind of all fed off of it. And it was nothing better than to see the fear in the eyes of the other pitchers and the other teams. They knew they were going to give up some runs. And that was a fun time to be part of that. Lots of high fives and lots of being able to enjoy Hank's run, towards the record too, and being a part of it.
Did Hank enjoy all the pressure that was on him? I mean, there was death threats against him, I heard. He was getting letters, phone calls. Did he just want it to end, or did he enjoy it?
No, I don't think he enjoyed it as much. Certainly, I know he didn't enjoy it as much as he should have. You couldn't help it. Death threats in Atlanta. If there had been death threats somewhere else, maybe that wouldn't have been so bad. But I think it was so obvious that there was the reason why and the distractions. And just think of how great this man was. I think back. To me, he's one of the few players that I played with that could have done that. Obviously, you have to have the talent, but the attitude and how he got through this and how he didn't make it a distraction for the rest of the team. The one thing that changed, he didn't get to ride the buses. We didn't get to ride the buses with him so much. He went on the planes with us, but, he goes his own way. And one of the first guys, I guess, lived in a different hotel. So you lost one of your teammates, and then you realize and go, well, yeah, but there's a lot more to this and it's such a shame. This was, the greatest record in U.S. sports history was happening, and people were trying to tear it down, and it was just, it was too bad. But like I said, I don't think anybody else could have handled it any better than him. And he kept going. It was like, okay, all these distractions and everything, but I'm still, I'm going to hit a home run every 10 times up there, and nobody's going to stop me from doing that. And I'm going to be a great player and help win ball games. And, that's what we play baseball for. So I was really happy for him because I think when Bonds went past him, he had always said, too, you know what, Babe Ruth, I think for the Reds for 39 years or something like that. Hank held it for 39 years or something like that. There's all kinds of similarities in a lot of the stuff anyway. But that's what he always, his records are made to be broken. He never said, I'm going to replace Babe Ruth and be better than him, whatever. He was out there doing his thing, and he was just better than everybody else. And you could count on him, and he made everybody else around him better, obviously. So we enjoyed it as much as we could. This was, like I said, the biggest record in American sports. I think it still probably always will be. Because he was going past an icon. Going past Hank Aaron wasn't the same as going past Babe Ruth. And having him forever, and all of a sudden this guy's part of this, and we're part of it, and wanting to make him the god and the idol and all that stuff that he should have been at the time. And seeing some of the stuff that happened is disappointing. But I think when Barry got close to him and passed him and everything, people finally realized who Hank Aaron was. I think more at the time, well, this guy plays in Milwaukee and Atlanta, and we don't get to see him. And so what we thought Willie was going to do, we thought somebody else was going to do it. We thought Mickey, all those kind of things. He wasn't known that way, so I think that was a plus for him because maybe the press wasn't so livid until he got to 700 home runs, and everybody looked around and went, wait a minute, who's this guy? And so that went, he had his press conference all day and the distractions and everything else, but maybe not the social media now. So it wasn't, there was the letters and people in person, but the rest of the time it was, we had our teammate and guy that was out there doing it. And I think we need to realize it was disappointing that we didn't have an anniversary big celebration for him last year too in Atlanta. You talk about Dale Murphy and myself. Just think Hank, and he's still the man. And hopefully we haven't forgotten about that. Because it meant so much to everybody. Well, you were there. You know how much it meant to not just baseball, but to sports. Anybody that ever played, the pride that you had that this is a guy that we can allude to, somebody that we can see and all that kind of stuff. Babe Ruth was dead a long time ago. What was he like? I don't know. We're watching movies, but we got to see Hank and how he is and everything. So it was just an incredible ride. And, I was there for 6 years with him, I guess, and just couldn't replace that kind of time in any other situation. I didn't know what I was going to do, how long I was going to play, but man, I got to be on that moment. Plus, how come I got to be on base? I was on base when he hit it. So that's an even more special thing, I guess. I love it. So I just want him to get his due and what he meant to. And, when you win in all the cities that you play in, of course, you mean so much to the fans. You mean so much to the region. It makes everybody. When baseball, when any team is in a pennant race, the city shuts down. And when people go to work, they're all happy and they're talking about this and they're friends and everything. So you realize after you play for a while that, man, this means more than just your family and stuff. This is people are enjoying what you're doing, so it makes it even better. And that's why I guess I wish it would have happened later in a different place, because Hank would have gotten a little bit more or a lot more of what he's really due.
He wasn't flashy like a Willie Mays. Again, he just went about and did his job. He wasn't looking for the publicity. Whereas, with Mickey Mantle, he was flashy. You always heard about the stories about him partying in New York. You heard about Willie Mays to say, hey, kid. But Hank was just quiet, but he had all the skills they did, but he just went about and did his job. Well,
yeah, he was the guy that played the game. He was the guy that you could look at and go, okay, that's how I'm supposed to play baseball. And, I laughed about Willie and Mickey was in New York and Willie, of course, in New York. But Mickey was the guy that had enough talent and people wanted him to do it and all that kind of stuff. He had so many injuries and all the things out of his control. Flamboyant guy and everything. Hank was, came, like I said, played in Milwaukee, played in Atlanta, so he's never in a big media place. Nobody, if you're a baseball fan, obviously you knew, but you didn't know much more about him. Willie, Willie was the first hot dog in baseball. He was the first guy. His hat flew off. He was flamboyant. And it wasn't, I'm not saying that as a negative. I'm just saying, the basket catch and all that kind of stuff. And so I think his legend of how, he was better than Hank. And I was like, I don't know if he was, but Hank's got more home runs, RBIs, runs, all the things. And Hank, 2 batting titles, 2 stolen base titles, the same gold gloves, 24 All-Star games. So he must have been pretty good too. And I guess where we needed is more people to know about him. Then we would have maybe looked at him different. And he was a quiet guy, and no, he wasn't quiet. He was a low-key guy where He was the leader, and he was the guy you watched play, and he was flamboyant enough because he was one of those guys you look back and go, well, he didn't make any mistakes. I don't remember him missing a cutoff man. I remember him making an error, something, make strikeout once in a while. He was a great base runner. Just subtle stuff that wasn't so obvious. So I spoke with Bob Gibson one time, not just one time, but talked to him quite. And I asked him, I said, okay, who's better? Because when Bonds was catching Hank, then it was the controversy, well, Willie would have played longer and he would have, and Hank had more RBIs, or Hank had more at-bats, and playing, it's like, okay, well, that's nobody's control over that. So I asked Bob Gibson one time, we're at fantasy camp enjoying ourselves, just laughing. Okay, who gave you more trouble, Willie or Hank? And he looked at me like his Bob Gibson scare, like he was going to go, well, you dumb idiot, why don't you? Well, he goes, Willie, I hated Willie because I could throw at Willie, come close, and he would have to come close, he'd fall on the ground, his hat come off, it'd take him all kinds of time. He pissed me off because he'd take way too much time to get back in the batter's box. Sometimes I'd do it again. And if I made a good pitch away to him, most of the time I had a good chance to get Willie up. Mr. Aaron, that didn't work. And that's how he said it. So it wasn't just who's better or who. That kind of said it all to me. And so the players, everybody has got a different opinion, but the players, he's more respected than anybody as a player, I think. We realize and look back and go, well, man, all the records that he holds and all the things he's done. So that's kind of a fun thing to play with a lot. And who knows? There's no way of ever knowing who's the best. But when you're talking about one of the best, I got to enjoy watching him for 5 years. Every single day, on and off the field. He taught me a lot how to handle yourself, no matter what's going on. And I'll be forever grateful for that.
Did you enjoy playing at Candlestick Park? Because it seemed like that park had to be miserable to play in with that wind.
Well, I'm an optimistic guy. You got to be. Not just for there, but I grew up in L.A. and before in Los Angeles. So, and the Dodgers and Giants hadn't come out to yet, but my mom and dad and all their friends, my uncles and stuff, were all, well, half of them were professional baseball players, but they had season tickets to AAA and all that stuff. So when we watched the games, when the Dodgers and Giants finally got to the West Coast, watching the games from L.A., the only games that the Dodgers had on back then were the Giants games up in San Francisco, and they were black and white when I first started. So watching that park, them playing in that park and seeing those people in parkas and the wind blowing and going, man, this is California. And I hadn't been up there. I'd never been there. Even though it was only 400 miles away, you're thinking, what the heck's going on here? People got parkas on and the wind showing the wrappers blowing around, the wind blowing and everything. And it's like, wow, that can't be that bad. Well, when you go there and play, finally, when I was playing with the Braves before I was with the Giants, it was like, man, thank God we only got to be here 3 days. And then, I got traded to the Giants, and it was great because I was closer to home. My family could come up to the games all the time. And it was good. I got out of Atlanta and needed to make a move, and I got to a good ball team. And the great thing was I was part of that Dodger-Giant rivalry. So when you go to work every day and you don't like the way the wind's blowing, it's like, okay, what are we going to do? We're going to either go put it out of your mind or use it. I always try to talk myself into and everybody else into going, we got an advantage because we play every day. Well, that wasn't true, because playing in a wind tunnel every day and freezing your butt off and not, that was the first time I ever took batting practice or used batting gloves, was taking batting practice in San Francisco at Candlestick, because it was usually so cold and wet and damp, and if you didn't hit the ball perfect, by the time the game started, your hand still might be ringing. So that was the first time I started wearing batting gloves regularly and just trying to make it work. There was sometimes, unfortunately, the one thing is the weather did have some because of the wind. Wind, sometimes balls wouldn't get caught, they'd blow it down, all kinds of stuff would happen. But so I would imagine the odds were against the people playing there every day, as opposed to playing there, we played 4 times a year, whatever, 12 games or 16 games. So, but you couldn't look at it that way. It was hard enough knowing that, we're facing Carlton tomorrow and I can't worry about whether it's cold or not. So, and heck, I played in great teams. I played with Willie McCovey. How many people got to hit third in front of Hank Aaron and then third in front of Willie McCovey? Mac was Mr. San Francisco Giants. Same status as, he was the man up there. So, and great teams. We had Jack Clark and we had great pitching, and Perry, Gaylor Perry and Marshall and all those guys were there before. And then we had great teams, but we're staying division and they had to beat the Dodgers in the Big Red Machine. And that was the hard part. But, I always respected those fans because watching them on TV with the Parkers, they'd still come out. They didn't draw real good if you didn't win, but, man, when we were winning, we got Vita Blue and from the A's, and we got crowds 50, 60,000 people against the Dodgers and became a pretty good team. Fans came out, and it was a sense of pride to play in a park where no matter what, the people come out to see and enjoy it. And I always got to watch some pro stuff with the Dodgers, which I enjoyed too. So that happened all the time.
When
people, I guess maybe unless you're part of that or you're part of the cities and stuff, that rivalry, the Red Sox and Yankees, everybody knows about that. And also, but the Dodger Giant one was, to us, was just as bigger. So you knew exactly when you were going to play the Dodgers.
Oh, exactly. You had Frank Robinson as your manager towards the end there, and he
Right,
seemed like a stoic guy. And you had Tommy Lasorda, who was kind of like a clown out there as manager.
Oh yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. It was the good guy Dodgers. I hated the Dodgers growing up playing against the minor leagues because they had clean uniforms. They were an organization. They had nice uniforms. We got hand-me-downs. The A's and the Braves and everything else. So we kind of hated them then because they walked around like they were kind of cocky in the minor leagues because they had clean uniforms and a little bit better. So that was a natural thing. And so they were the squeaky clean LA, and San Francisco was the bad boys up there. And we were part of that whole thing with the black and orange. And we had some great series where we beat them at the end and knocked them out, and they knocked us out. And it doesn't get any better than that.
Was Sparky Anderson your favorite manager to play for?
Well, I can't say he's more favorite than Eddie. Sparky was a different time at a different place. I respect him so much because of what he did for the Tigers. And when he went there, left the Reds, and he was very fortunate in a lot of ways to come to the Tigers when I think people got to realize how great that organization was at the time. We won in '84. We went to playoffs '87, but we were in the best division in baseball then, where 6 different teams won in 7 different years in that division, and you had to win 95 or more every year. So, but he came over there at the right time when Lance Parrish, I look at that lineup in Detroit. Lance Parrish at the time was maybe the best catcher in baseball, an organization guy. Howard Johnson was playing third. He'd come up in the organization before he got traded to the Mets. Of course, we know Trammell and Whitaker should be in the Hall of Fame, both of them. And then Larry Hernan was in left. He hit 30 home runs after getting traded from the Giants. Chet Lemon hit ninth a lot for us and hit 20 home runs every year. One, to the center fielder of Earth, and then Kirk Gibson was a budding star. And then Morrison Petrie had come from the organization as number 1 and 2 starters and top 10 pitchers in baseball at the time. And Sparky came in there all at the same time when they were young, just coming up to major leagues. And they all loved him because he was a positive guy, molded them and in a lot of ways, and let them play, and they became, big stars. And so it's an art to do that. You went back before and said, sometimes good players aren't good coaches. Well, I don't look at it that way I think everybody's an individual. Some people really want to coach. Some people know how to do it. Some people realize why they were doing it and how it's a thirst to pass it on. And Sparky did that and had already had success with all those other guys that had come up with the Reds, as we all know about them. So he kind of knew how things worked, and he was always tinkering, and so he was a hands-on guy, and he took the responsibility if it worked or not. And with the talent that we had, it was working most of the time, and it was a great place to play because the fans had not won forever, and they're as good of sports fans that's a greatest sports town as there is in the country. When the Pistons average 32,000 people there, and you got Michigan State play football in the same day at the same time and draw 200,000 people. These people are there are traditional, been there forever, appreciated the kind of players that we had, and appreciated the run that we were on. So, all those things have to fall in place, and Sparky was obviously a big part of that.
What shocked me was, being a Cubs fan, I thought it was going to be the Cubs and Tigers in the World Series, but again, the Padres broke our hearts. But...
Yeah. See, not many people remember that. We did. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah,
that would have been a great World Series. I think the Cubs. Tigers.
Well, that was what everybody in the country wanted, except Padre fans. Everybody in the world wanted that. It was the two original teams, the ones that haven't won for. Of course, the Tigers have won 68, but that was a long time. And wow, this was supposed to be. We all thought that, man, this is the way it's supposed to be. The Cubs finally, and after all that time, the two of the best sports towns and a fan base, but for me, I'm glad the Padres won because I got to get a bunch of tickets in San Diego, and I wouldn't have got any tickets in Wrigley Field. So, and I had lots of people, and I ended up with 93 tickets in San Diego to have my family all get to watch me play in the World Series. But yeah, we all wanted the Cubs win, and I think we look back now, yeah, they were the best team. It was their time, and my gosh, what a shame. But the Padres fan, that was a good team, but the Padres fans were great. But man, it would have been nice, wouldn't it? Cubs and Tigers World Series.
What shocked me also about the Tiger team was your closer. You got him from the Cubs. He was just a middle reliever, Willie Hernandez. All of a sudden, he's the MVP and Cy Young winner the next year.
Yeah, that was incredible. And I think what happened in a lot of ways was Willie was to come in to be the left-handed guy. I don't think anybody thought he was going to do what he did because he had been a good pitcher in Pittsburgh. He was good. That middle guy, like you said, he'd get lefties out, get righties out because he had the screwball and everything. And you put him in a new situation. But I think one of the things that we overlooked too is another guy, Aurelio Lopez, who was probably going to be the stopper. And all of a sudden we had a lefty-righty combination. And that's what Sparky kind of started at the start. And then Willie, neither one of them. Aurelio Lopez, I think he won 10 games. He was like 10-1 out of the bullpen with like 16 or 17 saves. So we had that two guys. So Willie, I think when we got him, he wasn't, and nobody went, okay, we got our stopper. It was just another guy that could help us. And usually, that's the way it usually happens in a lot of ways, is that somebody gets a chance and everything worked out. Our team was so good, and our defense was so good. And of course, the pitching, they pitched great. But we were underrated as defense, and we scored so much, we scored runs. So there was a confidence right away for everybody to go out there. And the start that we had was, magic. Nobody's ever had that start. So I don't know how that all fell into place. I'm sure glad I was part of it, though. It was a magic thing that I don't think anybody's ever going to experience like that. 35-5. I mean, that's even, you throw that number out and you just kind of go, there's no way. That's impossible. And especially start the year, having me as a free agent, almost winning the year before, expecting all these great things, knowing that, okay, this team might be able to maybe able to win the pennant this year, and then all of a sudden blowing everybody away. Although we didn't, because Toronto, we were 35-5, and I think Toronto was 29-11, something like that. So they weren't very far out. Nobody was watching them. I mean, nobody said much about them. All of a sudden we were the focal point, and we went up to Seattle 35-5. We lost 3 games in a row to Seattle, and it was like the world was ended, and everybody realized, hey, the Blue Jays are only like 5 games behind you guys. And they're like, oh my gosh, we still got 6 months to play here. So it wasn't as easy as it seemed, but it really was. But to be able to go through all that magic stuff, the great starts, Whitaker and Trammell, it seemed like every game in the first inning we'd score a run, because they'd both of them be on base, or they drive each other in, and they both hit 20 home runs, so that was capable of it too. So that lineup was pretty nasty, and actually we didn't even all have our best year or close to it.
No, the next year your next year you did even better. You hit over 40 home runs in 85.
It's funny because I went there in 84, and I had a 3-year contract, and I was 37. And I disappointed the owner. Even though we won the World Series, I hit 16 home runs. And I guess that's all that really mattered, because I disappointed the owner, and they tried to trade me. And I was almost traded to the Yankees in 85. It didn't work out. Jack Armstrong, who was an up-and-coming pitcher, they were going to trade me. And I look back and go, if I got traded to the Yankees in 1985, and I would have hit 40 home runs for the Yankees and led the American League in home runs, it would have been the first time since Reggie Jackson did it way back in 71 or something. And I would have done it in New York as opposed to Detroit. What would have been different about my baseball career, my life, and everything else? But you know what? I picked the right spot. They didn't trade me. I did it in Detroit. I got to, and it was in the pennant race every year. And in 87, we got the playoffs. So I'm real happy about that. But it was kind of, I look back and go, it wasn't I hit 30 the year before, and then, I got Sparky Patumi, or I didn't play as much, and I didn't hit those 2 home runs a week. I hit 1 home run a week. And then the next year, I hit 2 a week. And it was like I said, that confidence thing, and I was being told I was old. In baseball, 30 years old, everybody's wondering when you're going to fall out. You're going to not be able to play anymore. And so that was an incentive, and we had injuries and all that kind of stuff. But, it was so fun winning and being at such a good ball club that just go out there. And that's what I learned from everybody. Go out there and every day, you're going to work, you're enjoying your work. You can do something better than you did the day before, and it doesn't matter what other people say. It doesn't matter whether they think you're in a slump. It doesn't matter whether they think you're older. It doesn't matter where. Because they feel like, well, at that age, I can't do it anymore. So he can't be able to do it. And you set your own standards, and it was a magical year for me. what was great about that year too is that Carlton Fisk and I were doing it, and we were both old farts. You know, I was like, you could see in the eye of those young pitchers and going, oh, I could throw it by this guy. He's old, and I learned from Hank Aaron. I didn't work all the time, so. So, you know, there's always something new in baseball. There's always something to look forward to. So, I guess I was supposed to stay in Detroit and do that stuff in Detroit and finish my career. My last year was so great, finishing, going back to Atlanta again. And with Dale Murphy in '89, that was a special time to start out there and finish up there, I guess. But anyway, so '85, yeah, that was like you kind of feel like you get your credibility back. You know, the players give you respect, but the respect from other things, and so it makes it easier. So people aren't always asking you what's wrong, and you know, we're gonna put somebody else in there and all that kind of stuff. And that's kind of where I was at the time after '84. Although the best thing in the world happened, you win a World Series, and all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, well, okay, well, let's do it again. And
Yeah.
that kind of wasn't what everybody. I mean, you know, the owner, Tom Monahan. You know, he put in the article on United magazine on the plane that the only disappointment he had in '84 was that he had signed me a 3-year deal. I was like, wow, that didn't make sense. So, but you don't have any control about what other people think or say, and you don't have control what you do there, and get all involved in your buddies and the town. Man, there's nothing better. There's no way to describe being in a World Series parade and in Detroit. And it's you know, I think we could see now San Francisco and Detroit are two places that everybody wants to play now, and everybody wants to be, because the atmosphere, the fans, you know, not just them, but those two places now, and that because they've had success, obviously. But at the same time, it's like giving back to those fans that have waited for so long. That's why the Cub fans, one of these days, they need to get that back.
Did you have a favorite park to play in?
I'm sorry.
Did you have a favorite park to play in?
Well, you know, some of you love to, go in there and hit. You know, the cookie cutter ones, the '70s ones in Cincinnati and Philadelphia, Pittsburgh somewhat too. When it got really hot stuff, the ball just jumped. And everybody'd say that about Atlanta too. But, you know, you played there your whole career or the whole time, and it wasn't. I don't know, maybe for such of the other teams. But, yeah, those places. But one of the best things that happened when I went, you know, playing 15 years in the National League and choosing to go to the American League, being in the Tigers and getting to play in all those, I mean, the classic stadiums. I mean, playing your, you know, 82 games in Tiger Stadium is just, every day you go out there and, you know, the GOATs are around, and this is where Ty Cobb and Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth and all these guys played and stood here at home plate and all, and you realize that the plate in Tiger Stadium was a little bit crooked, which I guess probably most people don't know that. But
no, I never knew that.
It's kind of tilted toward right center. You know, it's been here 150 years or whatever, and it was always crooked, which is kind of funny. But anyway, you go through that, and you sometimes you just stand out there and go, wow, look at this is the history of baseball. And so then going to Yankee Stadium, and man, just the history and how you know, you get to see the fan base in other places, Fenway, you know, Old Memorial Stadium, and County in Baltimore, and County Stadium in Milwaukee. County Stadium in Milwaukee, I used to go out there at noon on the road and have, because they'd be outside tailgating already, and go out there and eat with the people and have a couple of blocks and stuff like that before I go out to the park early. We used to do that. And back then you could do that because the fans were there, and they, you know, they appreciate it if you're a good ball player. They, you know, there's people that, you know, of course, we're going to root against you or whatever, but it was more of a hands-on thing back then. And so I enjoyed every single moment of that. That was passing along again, because my family is such a baseball-oriented place. Passing all those things along. And my mom and dad would go to. I'd take them to a couple of week road trip every year and see the different parks, and so they could get to see all that and enjoy that with me too. Along with my family, but and aunts and uncles and all that kind of stuff. So I get to share all that. And people are so excited to go to a ballgame. They love it so much, and so it's easy to kind of go, okay, we're going to give you a good show here today, so you keep coming out. And I still appreciate. I get mail from people, and so many great stories. And when they went to the games back then, and I got a couple of buddies here now. I live in Fort Worth, and one of my best buddies here, he goes, heck, I hated you. I go, really? He goes, yeah, I really hated you. He grew up in Cincinnati, and then now he's in Texas. So he goes, yeah, because you had a mother, you play against, but so you get a little piece of that, and that's probably what, the enjoyment of going back and remembering all. That's why I love doing these kind of things. Remembering all those memories is anything takes you back to that's a great thing.
No, you mentioned history. I mean, you were part of history. An '83 All-Star game. I remember watching. I was a 12-year-old, and they had the 50th anniversary of the All-Star game, and all those great players were there.
That was the best one. I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, so Eddie, Matt, we'll go back to Matthews. Okay, my dad played. My dad's brother, my one brother, uncle, played in the minor leagues. My mom and two of my aunts played professional softball for 10 years. I mean, back when, they do it now in the colleges there. This is professional. And her dad, my grandfather, pitched about 25 years in the minor leagues. Now, my mom's side of the family, Salazar, it's Mexican Americans, but generations back. But anyway, so back at that time, he couldn't play. My grandfather, who I guess was one of the, Fred Haney, said he had the best curveball he'd ever seen, and he played against the exhibition. But back then, the color line was still going on. So anyway, I grew up with all those things. Two of my mom's brothers played professional baseball. And anyway, so grandparents, everybody, we played baseball. That was what we all grew up on. And to have their son, nephew, grandson play Major League Baseball was the best thing could have ever happened. So I got to enjoy all that kind of stuff with him and share all those kind of things. So that 83 All-Star game. So when I went to Atlanta, and my parents had gone on road trips and all that kind of stuff, whatever, and my dad and Eddie Matthews hit it off like buddies. And they became really good friends. And so the 83 All-Star game, we finished in San Diego, and when you're not a starter, you don't hear about it until, Friday or Saturday, I guess, that you made it. So we're all going to go, my parents, my brother, and a couple of people, my wife, all that were going to the All-Star game. And, of course, the 50th All-Star game. Oh, my gosh. And I don't know if you remember, of course, they had, you just talked about, they had all the guys that have made an All-Star game for all those years. I think there was almost 100 of them. I have a picture somewhere they took a picture of all these guys, and there was, so what a thrill to just meet these guys. And, of course, I've known some of them. But anyway, my dad and Eddie were good buddies. Well, they brought back all those guys, and, of course, Eddie was going to be there. So my dad was looking forward to that, and I was looking forward to it, to see him. And I know all the other guys that were going to be there. So we get back there on Monday. We got batting practice and stuff. So I went in there early and took my dad and my mom. My mom couldn't go in the locker room. Of course, she wanted to, but she knew a lot of these guys anyway. She's sitting in the stands. I take my dad in the locker room. Eddie Matthews, as I walk in, this is about noon. Eddie has got about 10 guys sitting over in the corner. They're all having beer, playing cards, yelling, screaming, telling stories as baseball players do. And he looks up and he goes, "Hey, Dick, come on over." My dad's name, Dick. "Hey, Dick, come on over here. I want you to meet these guys." And I go, "What about me?" He goes, "I'll see you later." and took my dad, and back then, everybody had crew cuts. You know, nobody had long hair. Everybody had the same kind of hair. Took my dad over there with, Lou Burdett and Johnny Logan were there, and then a bunch of the Braves, obviously, but also, so I go get dressed. So I don't even go over there because I'm going to go get dressed, and then I can go out and enjoy. When I come back out, they're all outside, so they're out in the dugout. As I walk back out in the dugout, and we're getting ready for batting practice and stuff, here's lined up Moose Gowan, Yogi Berra, Roger Maris, Mickey Mantle, Bob Cerf, let's see, Johnny Logan, Lou Burdett, all these guys sitting in the, and my dad's right in the middle of them, in the dugout. The greatest thrill I've ever had in baseball, I think. And it was such a wonderful thing because he was such a big baseball nut and everything, and Eddie took him by his hand and really got to let him enjoy that.
Your dad probably never forgot that.
Oh, of course. But here's the kicker. So I was still in the National League, and then the next year, 84, went to the Tigers. They were all looking forward to it. In fact, they used to go on, like I said, 2 weeks into and see like 4 cities, different towns, and go to their ballparks during the summer. Well, I'm all excited to go to the Tiger, Lakeland. Mom and Dad, come on. They used to come down for spring training, usually for a week or so. Okay, when you come down, when my dad had gotten sick and died back in 84 from colon cancer, and went just like that. Never got to go to spring training. Never really got to see him with the Tigers, but his last thing about baseball was, and one of the last things was that I had a good year in 83 with the Giants, obviously, and then, but the All-Star game. And so, that was, obviously that game was something more than special for me. Exactly. And, that's why you look back and go, those people wanted, those players before, man, are just like everybody else. They got families and everything, and they love having the other people's families around. And that's what, like I said, that's probably the biggest thrill I've ever had in baseball. One of the guys that had a lot to do with my life too was Jerry Tarkanian, the UNLV coach.
Yes.
I played for him in junior college on state champion basketball team as a point guard. Before he went to Long Beach State, and he won like 4 state titles in California, and I just happened to be on his team anyway, he took over the second year I was there in junior college, and we won the state, and I got to run the team, and has always been that coach that everybody looks back and goes, yeah, this is the guy, and he was the same way. Push, push, push. You can do better. It's the way you have to do it. It's all mental. You be better mentally than anybody else. I just want to mention one thing I am doing right now is I've been blessed to have all this stuff happen to me before, so that I have Darrell Evans Foundation, and it's Darrell Evans Senior League Wish Foundation. So we do kind of wishes for the older generation. We take care of them in the nursing homes. We do a lot of stuff that is just so rewarding and everything. And we have had such a great time because we interview the people too. We learn so much from the older people that nobody thinks about. And we just had a big deal with the guy that was in the Olympics diving. And, you hear all these stories of all these people and, in the wars and all that kind of stuff. So we kind of do that on our website, and so that people know about these people too. So I'm blessed being able to do that. So that's what I'm into right now. So I'm enjoying myself.